Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's installment of Washington Post Story Mode, the show where we discuss the biggest video game news of the week. I'm Washington Post reporter Nathan Grayson, and I'm joined today, pretty much as always, by my fellow Washington Post reporter Shannon Liao. Say hey, Shannon.
Hey everyone, did you say, okay, well, I'm gonna ignore that. Hey everyone, welcome back to our stream. So excited to be here. So much news to discuss.
And already this week we're going to be exploring a smattering of topics from Lost Ark to Cyberpunk to the Uncharted movie to do I have anything like really truly tremendously fun that I can hint at?
I just published an article, so I'm assuming we're gonna
did?
talk about it.
You
Oh,
published an
we're
article?
not talking. Okay, well,
No, okay,
we
you're talking
should
about
talk about my
you're
article.
talking about the Raven one. You're talking about the Raven.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, okay.
I,
Wow.
I thought you meant you like just published an article, and I was gonna be like, what, where, when?
Oh, no. I just meant like today. So, yeah.
Okay, thank goodness, thank goodness. Also, I quickly want to address that. Yeah, so this is interesting. So James Jackson, one of our regulars. So let's see, I barely missed working with Shannon at CNN. When I was at NBC, I met Nathan at TwitchCon when he worked for Kotaku. Um, I apologize because I don't entirely remember that, but also TwitchCon is a blur every year, so I barely remember anything that's happened at any TwitchCons. That said, we'll have to meet again at a future one if you manage to make it out.
Yeah, James Jackson just sent us your entire itinerary for this year.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna be at DICE next week, in Vegas. I'm going to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas next month. Then I'm assuming both of us are probably gonna go to a game developers conference in San Francisco following that. And so yeah,
Hmm.
there's probably a lot of chances to meet up.
Yeah, there we go. It'll be super easy. But anyway, let's kick it off with a topic that I think Shannon can probably speak to quite a significant extent, given that I get the impression that you've been playing this game a lot. Let's talk about
Okay.
Lost Ark.
Okay, great.
Um, because
Yeah.
Lost Ark is suddenly the biggest, like, I guess, hardcore gamer game out there. Like, yeah, second most played game in Steam history after just 24 hours, which is, bonkers for a game that, as of just a few weeks ago, was like barely on anyone's radar.
Okay, well, I have to correct you. Well, there's a couple of things here. So last week you asked me had I played the game. I had not played the game. So
Mhm,
thankfully this year this today I can come back and say I have played this game for 2 nights in a row, all the way
mhm.
up until, like, the 3 a.m. daily server maintenance, and then everything shuts down, so I literally couldn't play anymore. And then I will say that, like, this game has been on my radar since, like, 2019, I wanna say. Ever
Mhm.
since I, like, started, games journalism, like, full time. I, like, asked my friends, like, "What game should I watch out for? Like, what's gonna be, like, the secret game nobody knows about? It's gonna be really popular." And they said, like, Lost Ark. So I've, like, asked Amazon
Wait.
over the
Are
course of
you
months
hmm.
to give me, like, access to this game. What's up?
Are you saying that you knew about it before it was cool?
Not in those exact words, no.
Uh-huh.
But, I basically, it was on my radar. I knew this game would be popular because it's already out in Korea and people have been playing it for a long time. And like, same thing happened with like Maple Story, which was like really big in Korea. And then they moved it over here as well. And yeah, just like you can kind of tell from the way that games are received over there, if they would have any like lasting power here. And yeah, so I was like, I would check it out. But I just didn't play it until like this past week because I finally had time.
Mhm.
I also didn't want to like play the beta and like have all my progress wiped and like have to reset like every few weeks or so. So I wanted to like start clean and it was good. It's been really fun. I've played it for like 10 hours now, which is
Mhm.
barely anything, and I'm like level 26,
Hmm.
and most people are like
Man.
level 50. And then the late game is like level 60, and you have like a lot of items, and you can do dungeons.
Dang, you should start a power leveling service.
Oh my god, I get paid like $10 probably for per hour.
Mhm. Yeah, no, great deal. Um, but yeah, no, okay. So like what I'm interested in is kind of like, if you can do this, a succinct explanation of like why it is this big. Because the impression I get is it boils down to like combat feels good and like, I don't know,
Mhm.
marketing. Like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is the alchemic reaction that made this happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's free, right? And then second of all,
Mhm.
I'm just wrote an article that I need to like add a few things, and then we can publish it next week. So this is like you'll hear this before we see the article, but basically I go into explaining why is it so popular, why is it so good. It's like quality of life features that it has. First of all, when I was playing New World, I really wanted to like cross the map, but I was like there are no horses, there are no mounts. There's like a lore specific reason why there are no horses, but you're like stuck just like walking. You have like auto move, but you have to like slowly walk across town. I
Mhm.
wrote an article complaining about New World and how I have to walk so long,
Mhm.
so far. And then Lost Ark, that you have a mount. You have like lots of nice mounts, and then you can like jump through, and you can also fast travel very quickly.
Mhm.
I think New World you have to like go to an inn that's really far away, and then like register that in. But like in Lost Ark, you can just every little checkpoint, like every like I don't know 100 meters, you can get a fast travel mark. So you just like easily traverse the entire world. You're not like stuck. And then there are, like, other small things, like, there's, like, a mini map with, like, huge icons, so you're never lost,
Mhm.
and they
You
even have,
never
like,
lost
voice.
art
Oh,
art? No.
no.
I don't know, I
No.
thought I had something there, but it just vanished.
I don't think so. Yeah, but just, like, small things like that, they even have, like, voice chat, and
Mhm,
there's, like, so many different ways to, like, customize your character. Your character looks really good. I would say that New World characters, I wasn't really a fan of what they look like. I wasn't, like, walking around being like, "Wow, look how fashionable I am." I was like, "I
mhm,
look like I'm covered in armor." It's kind of, like, all gray and
mhm.
dull, so
No, wait. In Lost Ark or
in
in
New
New World?
World.
Oh, in New
I'm
World,
I'm
yeah,
saying
New
New
World
World,
was
it's
kinda
like the color palettes and aesthetic is, like, all medieval. I
mhm,
mean, Lost Ark is also sort of like this, like, weird, like, 1600 religious era. We
mhm.
don't really know what the era is. Like, there's, like, Thanatos in here. There's, like, different, I don't know, like, mythology.
Oh,
But
so they're taking from, like, all the mythologies.
yeah, but, like, you can see
Mhm.
from this photo, like, everyone is really colorful. I got, like, purple and pink ombre hair, so I can just, like, walk around. You
Nice.
can't do that in New World. So that's also, like, another thing is, like, these kinds of games, you look very good. You don't have to spend money to look good. You
Mhm,
just walk around, and yeah, and I think obviously it's, like, people all joining into the game, right? So if, like, a bunch of people join with their friends, then they all play together, so
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, do you think it's also, like it feels like there's this repeated hunger for the next big MMO,
yeah,
and it's kind of, like, always grabbing the same basic crowd, and when that crowd jumps onto a game,
yeah,
then a ton of other people kind of, like, also become interested. And
yeah,
so like that results in these surges on these games that like may or may not have staying power, but they always have like this enormous launch moment where just everyone's like, yeah, this is going to be it. Let's go. And like I think that even Final Fantasy 14 benefited from that crowd like not having a new thing to jump to for a minute. So they're like, well, let's go over there. Oh wait, we love this game. Um,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting to watch because like I think that the question, maybe one that you are going to answer in your article becomes, will the game stay this way? Or will it kind of have one of those precipitous drop-offs that we've seen for things like New World and other MMOs that kind of like had strong starts?
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of my friends, who play a lot of MapleStory, and I also talked to people who, played Outriders with me and New
Mhm.
World with
Oh
me,
man,
and
Outriders,
I try to get them,
the
to play this
forgotten
game.
game of last year.
Yeah, no, I just found, like, all of my friends, because the game is free, like, they were like, "Yeah, I've already been playing it and I'm level 50," or, "Oh, sure, I'll download this and join you now." And so there's, like, almost, no resistance to trying this kind of game because, like, you can do so many things together with friends.
Mhm,
And that's the one thing. But then I also asked the people who've been playing for like a week now or however long since the game has come out, and they don't know if they would stick with it. They think that like when you reach level 50 and you're doing dailies every day, it gets
mhm,
kind of boring. The developers have to add more content, so that's the point where they could lose interest and go back to like playing League and MapleStory. Um, if there's not enough content. But then again, I just interviewed the Amazon vice president who's going to also be in the article,
mhm,
and he said, they are drawing from years of content that they have in Korea, right? So they're
mhm,
gonna localize what they've already made, which is just tons and tons of content. The other thing I would note is that like right now, the game is having like a daily server maintenance of 3 hours from 3 a.m.
mhm.
to 6 a.m. And so like everybody in the world is like, oh no, the world's ending. Goodbye, everyone. It's shutting down. And that's like a really cute moment across the server. But also, I
Mhm.
think it's frustrating people because they want to play through the entire evening if possible. Other games like
Right.
this only have a maintenance like once a week. So that's kind of like a lot of maintenance for a game like
Mhm.
this.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it might also be that like it's interesting because a lot of MMOs obviously do not have smooth launches at all.
Mhm.
And it seems like this one has been relatively smooth. There's just like that hiccup that you described of like semi-regular maintenance for now. I'm assuming that will go away with time.
Yeah, I have to ask about that. I'm not sure yet.
Mhm,
I think probably, but like there are just some bugs here and there. I haven't like noticed anything super egregious. It's like
mhm.
very smooth so far. I know they delayed the game a little just so that they could make sure that they could run the game efficiently, and also they have like the power of like Amazon Web Services behind them, so they
Yeah.
shouldn't have massive server outages like other games do.
Mhm. Yeah. So one thing before we move on from Lost Ark, one thing that I did want to ask you about, um, and like I apologize if this puts you on the spot at all, is just like there have been conversations around the character designs in the game, and specifically the way that the game tackles like female characters, in that it seems to like sexualize them quite a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, do you feel like the criticism around that is warranted? Like, I mean, I've got an article over here from like Kotaku about that. Um, One that interestingly is written by a man, but nonetheless, like, what is your sort of take on that? Having now played for a fair amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this happens a lot in a lot of games. I was interested in making my character a woman like with a nice outfit, and it came with the founders pack. And I was like really excited to see her fashion. I would say that one thing I would criticize as I was like playing this game, like I noticed this immediately, is like when she's walking around, she like sways her hips like
Hmm.
like extreme
Yeah,
like,
I think
in a way
they're.
that's not realistic, right? So that
Mhm.
like she just looks kind of silly as you're walking
Yeah, we
around,
have it
like
right here, actually.
yeah.
True as, I forgot to say
Yeah,
that.
it's just like nobody walks
Yeah.
like that at all, and it's just really, really funny. But I
Mhm,
mean, like my friend is playing a male character, and
mhm,
she still identifies as a woman, and like right now she asked me like, oh, can I like date characters in this game that are not women? And it, like there's something to know about the game is like a lot of, I don't know if you can date them, but you can build rapport, and I'm assuming
mhm,
like eventually that's like dating. But like there's a bunch of characters in the game that you can date, and they're mostly women. And I was like, oh no, there's actually like a couple guys you can date. There's like a blacksmith. But I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll just date him to prove a point that I can date
mhm.
this guy," but I was like, "I actually prefer to date all these women."
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was like, "Maybe I won't do that for the sake of the article." But yeah, I just think that, yeah, there probably is an imbalance, and to address that, like, I think a lot of these games coming from Asia, they are a bit more traditional with gender roles, and
Mhm,
they end up, like, you know, following these, like, same tired stereotypes.
mhm,
And you can see that with like League, which is not a Chinese game, but it's now owned by a Chinese company, and has been around for it's like really popular in Asia, and you can see that with you can't see that with Maple Story because they're also small,
mhm,
but you can see that with like Blade and Soul and other games like that.
mhm. Yeah, and it seems like another thing they've done that people are maybe taking issue with is that, some of the classes are gender locked. Like,
Oh
you can,
yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
can't play as a female paladin or warrior.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's why my friend is playing as a male
Mhm,
warrior. Yeah, that's what something that she noted, and also like just like the non-playable characters. A lot of them are like the women are like, "Please rescue me," and like they have like a very like soft, breathy
no,
voice
yeah,
actually,
yeah, of
and then all
course.
the dudes are like, "Oh, hey, you scrub, come here." So I don't know if I can say that word on the stream, but anyway, yeah.
Oh
So
my
just
god.
I found it kind of, the
As a
writing
scrub,
is
I am very
tired.
offended.
Yeah, but I'm not playing the game for the writing
Mhm,
or for, like, the gender politics, and the end of the day, it's for the combat system,
right.
and also just so I can write this article, but,
Wow, revealing your true motivations in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah,
Let's see.
30K
James
for it.
Jackson asks, "Do you think any of its strong start is disgruntled WoW and Final Fantasy 14 players, especially FF14 folks who are tired of long server queues?" I mean, I would assume almost certainly. I think that like with WoW especially, like it's disgruntled WoW players because that game just has an entire player base of disgruntled players at this point. And then also I think there's some overlap there between WoW fans and Diablo fans. And Diablo fans obviously don't really have anything new right now. Diablo 3 is 10 years old. Diablo 4 is still on the distant horizon. So, I mean, I think that those people definitely, and then, yeah, probably to some extent, Final Fantasy 14 players, because, as you said, long server queues remain an issue. Although it sounds like there are also things that prevent um, Lost Ark players from getting to play like when they want to between maintenance and then are there server queues right now?
If you wanna join a popular world, like, all of
Mm,
my friends are in Azena, I cannot enter that world. The server queue for that is, like, 1,800 players last time I checked.
mm,
Yeah, that's why I'm like, "Everybody at, like, launcher, anyone who wants to play with me, you better jump into my server." I don't know if it's, like, full already, like, it's probably closed out. But I'm in Corman because I think I chose a server with, like, a less popular name. Like, nobody
mhm,
wants, like, a KH something something kind of server, so, like, I knew
right.
it'd be unpopular, but I think even that is, like, filling up, so yeah, it's it's getting busy. I asked about server transfers,
Mhm.
but I haven't heard back on that yet.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of MMOs take their time when it comes to server transfers.
Oh,
In any case, I feel like that, unless, do you have anything else that you would like to say about Lost Ark before we move on to another topic?
yeah. I mean, I just think it's really fun, and it's still an open question of how long it'll keep
Mhm.
people's attention. I think because like they have, I mean, 2019 to now is like three. Oh my god, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, like almost 4 years of
Mhm.
content that they can kind of roll out over time. They don't have to. I'm assuming they don't have to work as hard to satisfy players, and these are the kinds of players who would reach the end game in 3 days, right? So like they need they're like hungry for content.
Mhm.
I also say like this game has been really popular among like the Asian diaspora, and even people who don't necessarily play World of Warcraft or Diablo, like they would have gravitated towards this title. Like they would play Blade and Soul or Black Desert Online and other titles like that, and just like the kind of game where you want to look really good. You want your character to look great so you can keep looking at them, and then also you want to be like incredibly powerful. And you want a guild so you can
Mhm.
talk to like 100 people. So if you like satisfy all those requirements, like these are the kinds of people that would come to your game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty clearly it's like speaking to some sort of much like an audience bigger than just the disgruntled MMO people. I think that again, to sort of go back to the point I made before, like when those people latch onto something, that creates a big enough kind of moment that then a bunch of other people latch onto it too.
Hmm.
And then as you're saying, the game already has all this history. And so like that adds this other element to it as well. Um, it's interesting though, because you see like all of the content creators that aren't playing it
Hmm.
so like, oh, it's just this grindy action RPG. It's going to drop off in like 10 days or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, like, again, given that it already has this content that it can kind of localize and add, kind of as it makes sense. I do think that it's different than a game like New World, for example, where just like, given enough time, people will exhaust everything in it, and then it just kind of flounders.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's important to have like a fun community, and already the people within Lost Ark that I've been talking to, like just like random strangers, are pretty nice. And I think like that's how the game like thrives is based on community. But yeah, I mean, I think that was it. That was my main point. I
Mhm.
actually don't know like who is playing this game outside of like the Asian diaspora that I've seen, but I would be really curious to like see if it takes off here as well. Because like just the name of it alone makes people think of like Indiana Jones immediately. So like they're it might just be like, "I'm very confused, I'm not gonna click on this," so we'll see.
I mean, wait, are you telling me this doesn't look like an Indiana Jones movie poster?
I would never
Like, look at this. Here we got, there's Indiana Jones. There is somewhere over, I guess the one with the really big gun, that's his dad, played by Sean Connery. And then they're all his classic friends. That's the team. And
so
there's
I
his pet
would say
dragon.
so there's some people so there's like 2 groups, right? There are people who would like look at this and be like, "Indiana Jones," and there are
Uh-huh.
people who like me who've never watched an Indiana Jones movie, so I'm like, "Couldn't be that."
Oh
Um,
man,
but
I'm okay. Well, if you've never seen them,
yeah,
this is yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. This doesn't
Okay,
look like
great.
anything to me. Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can guarantee you this is obviously Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Please don't.
Okay. Well,
um,
so I won't take your word to not take your word.
oh no. Oh, that's true. I've caught myself in kind of a double bind here.
Mhm.
It's not really a good way to get out of it. You can just never believe me about anything anymore. Oh well. Anyway, a great place for a journalist to be. Um, on to our next story of the week. As soon as it loads, there we go. So yeah, CD Projekt announced a giant Cyberpunk 2077 patch that will more or less, at least in terms of kind of getting rid of bugs and increasing playability, addressing concerns around artificial intelligence, the way cars drive and stuff like that, will basically bring it into ship shape,
Mhm.
which is interesting because the game originally shipped in December of 2020, and now here we are in February of 2022 with the game in a condition that I guess the developer would consider to be like, all right, we made it. This is basically the game that we are going to launch with.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, like, you know, that's a very odd spot for it to be in. I mean, I guess it's good that they stuck it out this long, and kind of like gave the people what they wanted, but it still doesn't really seem to me to be the game that people wanted it to be, before they got a chance to actually play it. It still sounds like a variation on, you know, what came out, just a more polished one.
Right. Yeah, I would have to like actually play through to like be able to say anything about this,
Mhm.
but like last year I think they came out with a roadmap for how much they would update the game, and it did stretch all the way to now. So they're making so CD Projekt Red is making good on their promises.
Mhm.
The only thing is just that I guess they could have delayed the game to now and then released it in a much better state and
Mhm.
like
And not force the
retained all the
developers to
good.
crunch like crazy.
Yeah, no, retain all the good faith,
Mhm.
that gamers had with the studio beforehand. I don't know if it would have protected them from crunching. I think they would still have to crunch in the end just because of,
Mhm.
like, poor time management or whatever happens, um, unless, like, they also tried to, like, I don't know, unionize and, like, put, like, conditions
Mhm.
in place to not crunch, but, like,
Yeah.
in the later months of, like, trying to polish a game, um it does seem like they would have to. So yeah,
Well, I
so
mean, at least to uphold, you know, executive profits. It is worth noting that the head of CD Projekt is a billionaire. Um, so
mm,
I mean, you know, they have money to spare. They could have just been like, yeah, let's take more time.
yeah, I will
But
say that
yeah,
yeah, oh, go ahead. You want?
I
Sure.
know that was pretty much my full point.
Yeah,
Anyway, continue.
I just wanted to say like when I was covering Cyberpunk 2077 in I guess that's 2020 at this
Hmm.
point, like just before the game launched, I got to interview developers, and one of them said that he was so tired of working on this game and he was
Hmm.
so ready to be done. Actually, he was like, "I'm very excited to see what fans think of this game and like
Oh
then
boy,
I can move on to the next project."
pictures
Like,
taken
'cause
moments before disaster.
right, and I was like, "Oh, like, are you tired of working on this?" And he's like, "Well, I don't wanna say that, but, like, I kinda am."
Hmm.
And that was a year and 2 months ago, a year and 3 months ago. So I can't imagine how he's doing now at this
Hmm.
point. I've tried to interview them afterward, but, they no longer wanna talk to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's also, there's, like, a cryptocurrency project that they've worked on, that they, like, uh, worked with a, Polish watch company that's, like,
Hmm.
released, like, 500 units
Oh
of a
yeah, that's right.
watch.
They had that weird promotional thing.
Right, and then you, like,
Yeah.
get a NFT, certificate to prove that you've purchased this watch, but,
Right.
I was able to talk to the watch company, but when I tried to talk to CD Projekt Red, they were just like,
Mm.
"I don't comment."
Wait,
So
what are we now? The Washington Post?
yeah, no, no, no.
It was a swing and a miss, much like Cyberpunk. Um, but yeah. Anyway, it does seem like this patch adds some, at least a few things that are kind of interesting, because I think that one of the big appeals of the game, at least in its promotional materials to a lot of people, is that it was going to be this big, you know, living place.
Mhm,
And it does seem like a lot of this was in service of at least kind of building out that illusion. I mean, I think that there's no real version of this game that actually has a living city. Like, you know, it's more about making you feel like you're in a place that is alive.
right,
And so, yeah, I was just reading through some of these notes, and like NPCs react more realistically. But then on top of that, like now you can you can like do faction related stuff, involving like, yeah, there are changes to the open world fixer quests. V now is standing with fixers throughout the city. New fixer gigs will appear gradually. In sets as standing increases. So, like, you know, a faction system basically. Let's see. You can like get apartments, like there are 4 additional apartments to rent, interior decor, you know, all these things that just make it feel more like a place. And I think when it launched, it felt very, very video gamey in a way that people were disappointed by, because they
mhm,
wanted to just have this big place they could live in and inhabit. And that was sort of what they were sold on or told they were going to receive. And then, you know, the actual game did not super turn out that way, at least initially. um, Now, I do think it's worth noting that they're calling this version 1.5, right?
oh, yeah, there's
And I
another
think,
one.
huh?
Will there be a 2.0?
Exactly. And I guess, you know, would be yes eventually. Especially because there's still like they've talked about, for example, DLC they're going to release in the future that still is nowhere to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't shock me if, in order to regain goodwill, they decided to release that DLC for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they have like some big DLC expansion pack that they'll bring out for free and call it 2.0.
Yeah.
This is just speculation. This is entirely uninformed. This is not me like doing a mini scoop or anything. But
I
I
think,
mean,
yeah, I just have to go back to their website with their roadmap and see
mhm.
where are we on the roadmap at this point.
I mean,
But yeah,
Cyberpunk
uh, I
2077
mean, as you're
roadmap.
talking, it just reminds me of in 2019. I went to like probably what might be the last E3. Oh, we found it. Nice.
Hmm. Yeah, or at least a version of it. I'm not sure if this is the most up to date one. And oh my god, it's so small. It's hard to zoom
Can you
in on.
press Control plus 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 and just make it like massive that way?
Control.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
All
So
right. Yeah, there's a free next gen console update
yeah, that's
and
that's
free
out now, I
DLCs.
believe.
There.
Yeah,
You
the next gen update. Yeah, is and then the thing is during the like live stream where they talked about this patch, they called some of this new content in kind of the patch they just put out, quote unquote DLC, even though it isn't.
Mhm.
They just added like some new guns and cars and stuff, and they're like, and this is a DLC, and that's a DLC. So like, they're kind of flubbing the language a little bit.
Mhm.
We'll see what that kind of means. Yeah. So here, oh yeah, that's right, because they've done multiple roadmaps at this point.
This
So
is the
this is like
roadmap that you opened,
okay.
yeah.
So that is the most recent
Oh,
one.
so they're just quietly updating that roadmap without telling. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, as you're talking, it reminded me of like when I went to the maybe like what's the last in-person E3 in 2019, and like
Hmm.
they debuted and demoed this game, or like they demoed this game and then they had like this guy playing through it, and I found him quite he was quite kind of like mocking his other coworker in jest, and I was like, that's kind of strange.
Hmm.
But yeah, so he like played through, and then I noticed like immediately like there's like some kind of like racial undertone of like everyone that you're beating up in this game is considered savage, and just like part of a gang of animals,
Hmm.
and that's like something that I interviewed them about as well. And I think they were saying like, I don't think we've offended anyone, I don't think this is something we have to apologize
Hmm.
for. But yeah, I don't know, in terms of like patches and hotfixes, I think they would leave that element of the game alone. And as we're talking about like Lost Ark and like gender roles within Lost Ark, I think it's
Hmm.
also worth like noting that CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk did not really like think about what they're really like portraying there when it comes to race.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, which unto itself is pretty weird because, not to rehash a conversation that's kind of taken place online in various capacities. I think quite a few times, but the original creator of the cyberpunk tabletop role playing setting is a black man, um, and so like he was obviously like involved in the creation of the video game, but not super directly all the time. I think that he was more in like a production kind of role or like somebody who would um, approve things as they came across his desk. But still, yeah, it's kind of weird how that all turned out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but Cyberpunk is a troubled game in a lot of ways, and I think that kind of gets back to one of the issues with this patch, or not this patch, but just in general with the game, is that at the end of the day, like it's still the same game. It's I think no matter how much it's improved, it's never going to be the kind of revolutionary, mind blowing experience that maybe people wanted it to be. The kind of like genre elevating Witcher 3 successor they were kind of hoping for. I think it will always be a kind of, as a result of development and time constraints, somewhat compromised game.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
also just like who is going to go back and play it now at this point, and have people have forgotten about it. I remember when it was about to come out, like there was just so much hype for it, even just like the year
Mhm.
beforehand. I think 2019 is really funny. 2019, I kept hearing about Lost Ark from my friends, and I also kept hearing about Cyberpunk and just the enthusiasm for that. And then of course now you can kind of see how they all shape up.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's just maybe like a little bit too far, but I still think that it'd be kind of interesting to go back and take a look at the game, because
Mhm.
when I first played it, I got, and I probably said this many times now, I got trapped in the tutorial where I had to like sneak behind this like dummy,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, if I maybe I'm just like not sneaking behind him well enough, because he would just turn around and immediately catch me, and
Oh
I
yeah,
failed the
yeah, yeah.
tutorial and I was like stuck repeating this 12 times, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't be this bad at sneaking. And I realized, like, okay, the game is glitched, and
Mhm.
I can't get out of the tutorial at all without passing. So I must have to close out of the game and reload a save because it's just too broken. And I was like, this is the first time I ever had like a bug within the tutorial
Oh
ever.
yeah, like
That's kind of incredible.
yeah, at the very beginning. No kidding. Um, but yeah, no. In terms of like the game. Oh yeah, first of all, hello Ham Solo '05. I also want to tell you that's a great name. Um, but yeah, anyway, to kind of like undermine my own point about the game remaining kind of forever fundamentally the same thing, or at least fundamentally kind of like, maybe unsatisfying. I do want to point very quickly to a thing that happened this week, coincidentally, which is that Sean Murray of No Man's Sky says that the game still isn't finished being updated. And they've released nearly 20 free updates since the game came out and have managed to, like, I mean, I think, again, it's still fundamentally kind of the same experience overall. Um, but they've managed to transform the game pretty substantially. And now, like, it's worth pointing out that the updates that kind of transformed No Man's Sky um, were very different in nature than the kind of thing that the developers of Cyberpunk were trying to work on, which was sort of fixes. And let's see, I don't remember off the top of my head when like No Man's Sky first got its first big, like, really transformational update, but I
Mhm.
think that might have taken longer than Cyberpunk has. I honestly don't remember, though. Even then, that's kind of saying something because Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky's team is like very small,
Right.
and Cyberpunk has like 300 people working on it, or it
Mhm.
did at one point. It probably has like closer to 100 now.
Yeah.
Um,
And also CD Projekt Red is a public company in
mhm.
Poland, and it's like the biggest company. I heard
Yeah.
at some point because I asked like the watch company, like, why are you working with CD Projekt Red, and what do you think about the reputation of this game? And then he was like, I really can't comment on that. There are problems, but
Mhm. I'm hoping that's only on my end, but Shannon, you're kind of glitching out a little bit. Okay, well, that's no good. Minor technical trouble. Everyone, give us a moment while we hopefully resolve this. This is fun, though. It's Shannon the Robot remix. Oh, no. No, she stopped entirely. Well, that's a shame. Hopefully, we will bring her back online soon. We may have to reboot Shannon. Not in the Hollywood sense of a new Shannon with like played by a different actor. Um, yeah, lost her in the stream as well. Okay, well, we will see. In the meantime, I will quickly Shannon's a Cylon. Exactly. I mean, we all had our suspicions. Let's be honest. Between her occasional disappearances to like another, I don't remember how Battlestar went anymore. Um, just like in Battlestar Galactica. No, just like in Doctor Who. Um, sorry, but anyway, um, yeah. Let's see. Really surprised No Man's Sky is coming to Nintendo Switch. Apparently, it's a native local game. Yeah, I'm also surprised by that. I mean, I do think that No Man's Sky was already, like, in terms of the sheer scope of the game and like its ability to procedurally generate so much, like kind of a technical marvel. And so I'm not entirely surprised that the people who are able to kind of make that happen are also savvy enough to make a Switch version happen. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I think there are going to be some compromises, and that version might be a little bit wonky or like, prone to frame rate drops. It may not look very good. We'll see, but I have my concerns. But in the meantime, yeah, it's pretty wild that all this time later, they're still working on it and releasing updates with so much regularity. And I mean, like, this is one of those quotes that I think that I would receive skeptically, um, if not for the fact that they've been, proving it out, which is this idea that they're still like really passionate about the game and they're still having a lot of fun making new stuff for it. Yeah. So Sean Murray said, for as many updates as we've done since launch and as many bucket list items we've checked off, our list of things we're excited about never seems to get any shorter. The team are always coming up with new things they want to do with the game, new content and features and areas for improvement. I'm amazed that the energy levels are as high now as they've ever been. We tend not to talk about what's on the list publicly, but suffice it to say, we're not done yet by a long shot. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I'd like hear this coming from another developer or an executive or something and be like, yeah, that's, that's not necessarily true. Or like that seems like kind of a, also I'm looking over at the stream on my end now, and that doesn't look entirely good because I can't see anything. Well, hopefully these technical troubles aren't too bad for everyone who's watching. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, again, I think that the developers at what are they called again? At Hello Games, like are showing that they mean this. So we'll see. We will see what the game gets in the future. I also really wanted to quickly like check a fact. We're back. Hooray. But yeah, let's see. I want to go to No Man's Sky's Wikipedia and see when they first put out like a major update that kind of changed the game significantly. To see when that happened relative to to Cyberpunk. Let's see. Controversy future. When was the first big update that they did? If anybody has this knowledge on hand, that would also be useful because Wikipedia does not seem to. Oh, here we go. Next, beyond and further updates. Fourth major update, initial post-release updates. Yeah, so I feel like Next was the one. Yeah, No Man's Sky Next. So that was 2018. Release was 2016. So yeah, 2 years. So yeah, 2 years is a little bit longer than Cyberpunk has had. So maybe not entirely a fair comparison. Let's see, 2017. Yeah, I guess it depends on what you clock as the first major update, whether it's 2017 or 2018. But yeah, so they took they took some time too. Another thing that I want to check really fast because I'm just interested in this as well is No Man's Sky Steam charts. Give that a quick look. What is the player base for this game like right now? So, I mean, obviously, if they're continuing to improve it, it's got to be healthy enough to justify it. But, and like, there was another recent update or another big update pretty recently. Oh, wow, it's spiking a lot today for some reason. Wow, it's up to almost 10,000 players right now. That is really something. 24-hour peak, close to 9,000. And then if we pull it out for 1 month, what do we have? Yeah, I mean, some, some peaks, but pretty consistent in the, 5,000 to 10,000 range, which is really, really not bad at all for a game as many years old as No Man's Sky at this point, which means like the updates are working. People remain interested in the game, and like there's a bit of a downward slope here, but it holds pretty steady and pretty clearly when an update drops, then goes back up to peaking for a while. Yeah, I mean, like, so it got a lot of attention toward the end of last year, but this is pretty remarkable for a game that has been around this long. I think that speaks also to the strength of the community that surrounds it and probably their own creative endeavors within the game. But yeah, all of which is to say that, Cyberpunk could still make something of itself. Although I think that, as Shannon was pointing out before she was tragically disconnected, there is they obviously have different responsibilities to like shareholders and stuff than maybe the developers in No Man's Sky do. Though they work with the publishers, so they also have their own responsibilities in terms of timing. But yeah, we will see where that ends up. As for other kind of things that have happened this week that are noteworthy, so the video game Hollywood convergence, I think, is officially here. I don't think it's hit its zenith yet. Oh yeah, and zero microtransactions. Yeah, that is also one for the Cyberpunk No Man's Sky comparison. In any case, the video game Hollywood convergence is here. I don't think it has like absolutely taken off yet in the way that we'll see in a few years. But in the same week, we have the Uncharted movie coming out and a BioShock movie getting announced. Now, this is interesting, especially because the Uncharted movie is apparently not great. Rotten Tomatoes, 40%. I just want to go through some of the little review quotes that they have in here because these are always fun. The movie is not out yet. I think I'm going to go see it tonight, actually. So I will have more opinions next week. But in the meantime, the critics have not been kind to it. So we have probably the best one. He placed up top. At least give Sony credit for recycling, which is all at once a brutal indictment of the movie and pretty accurate. Because I mean, what we have here is this kind of like Ouroboros moment of the Uncharted series eating its own tail, right? Because Uncharted originally was as a video game just like blatantly, obviously inspired by Indiana Jones. And so Indiana Jones, of course, is a movie series with history going way back, multiple decades, that sort of established so much of like what we consider now the kind of visual language of a certain kind of action movie. Sorry, one moment. And then Uncharted drew on all of that and created a sort of like visual language of its own for video games that drew on all of that history. And now they made a movie out of Uncharted. And so then you're like going back to the starting point. But what you have is a thing that is inspired by multiple rungs on this ladder, both Indiana Jones, the movies, and Uncharted, the video games. And like kind of invariably, you're going to wind up kind of back at square one, but also kind of not. Also, wait, could it be?
Oh.
Are we rejoined by Shannon?
Okay, my internet just came back. Well, I've been unboxing this gimbal so I can just join on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible. Your camera is a little framey.
Yeah, it's really weird that I don't know. I've just had internet issues over the past like week or so I should probably call it because it's not actually.
Yeah,
an
and also wait, you're
outage.
not doing an on-screen. You're unboxing off camera.
Oh
How
yeah.
sad.
Well, I was like tearing this into out of desperation, so nothing much to see here. Just a gimbal for maybe next week. Or if we're streaming, but that's TBD. Yeah, so I just like wanted to grab this immediately because I was like, maybe I'll join my phone and then I'll just like stream, but I don't want to hold my phone, so I'll just use this like stabilizer. But it's a DJI, same company that makes the drones.
Nice.
Okay, so anyway, I was in the middle of talking, and then you were like talking over me, and I realized, oh, it's because I have no
Because
internet.
you disappeared.
Yeah. But this internet is like not trustworthy, so I wouldn't count on me being here for long.
Alrighty. Well, welcome back. For the moment, I was just talking about the Uncharted movie and how it's kind of like an interpolation of an interpolation, where you have the Indiana Jones movie series and then basically a video game series that, I wouldn't say rips it off because Uncharted does more than that, but is very, very inspired by. And now you have a movie based on that. So you have kind of this like weird funhouse mirror version of Indiana Jones, essentially. Yeah, let's see. Wait, I had actually lapsed on reading chat. Oh yeah, so we're the saga continues. We are rejoined by Tommy Versetti, except for that he's made a new account. So that's fun. But then also, let's see. So Jonathan in chat says, this is the formula. A good video game equals a bad movie, and there are a few exceptions to that, i.e. Mortal Kombat. And even Mortal Kombat, like people have mixed opinions on, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's sort of interesting to watch that happen because we're going to see it happen a lot now, I think. One of the reasons I think that so many video game licenses are getting adapted to movies and TV shows is that they kind of fit the current zeitgeist well, in that they are like, fairly simplistic stories with a lot of action that you can adapt in ways that would not be dissimilar to like they lend themselves well to blockbusters. They lend themselves well to like the Marvel dominated zeitgeist.
Yeah. I mean, this is literally as we're just talking about Indiana Jones. Also, like, let me know if you can still hear me because I don't trust anything anymore. But yeah, so yeah, we were just talking about Indiana Jones. I think like this movie could just be along the lines, and like Tomb Raider was adapted like a long time ago. It's like just a whole genre of like action movies. I've been to the theaters with like friends who didn't even want like good writing or a plot. They just wanted to see people punching each other, and so the bar is very low for movies
the
like
bar
this.
is on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like I think that's part of it too. Like that's even present in like in this review on Rotten Tomatoes. Uncharted is finally here, and the result is an affable piece of studio filmmaking that easily clears our collective lowered bar. Like, you know, not even like
Wow.
denying
Wow.
that.
He's literally said, I did not read this review, by the way. I'm not copying him. He's copying me.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, I figured.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll after this I'll go email him and be like, hey, you've got to credit Shannon. She's the one who invented that phrase.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so like and I think for a lot of people that's like that is going to the movies these days. Like, for a lot of things that are higher quality, you can just watch them in your home. And like the appeal of going to a theater is to like go with your friends or to go for an experience that is heavy on spectacle, even if it is light on substance. Or at
Mhm.
least that's what it's become. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be that way. I think there are many different ways that you could justify going to see a film in theaters that don't necessarily need to rely on like explosions and a big act 3 scene where everybody fights a giant monster,
Yeah.
but that's where we're at.
I'm also curious about people who haven't played any of the games, and then are still gonna go watch this film. Like I've had friends reach out to me saying like, "Oh, I guess this is a video game related thing. Do you know about this?
Right,
Cool."
they don't actually know.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, I actually want to watch this movie. Like it looks good." So because I think that if this film is just going to appeal to everyone who's played Uncharted, then that's a very small amount of people
Oh
getting to
yeah,
theaters.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Uncharted's very popular for like a AAA video game,
Mhm.
but
But like
the audience
globally, it would be
exactly.
not recouping its money spent. So.
Yeah, yeah, no, um, yeah. I mean, I'm interested to watch it because I think some of these reviews from people who are not into the game are especially brutal.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, like this one turns National Treasure, like already using National Treasure as a point of reference means like you're probably not an Uncharted fan. But yeah, National Treasure style adventure into a generic action flick that loses its way early on, and not even the combined charisma of its stars, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, can put it back on track. Like let's see. Written with 10-year-olds in mind. How many crash and burn video game adaptations do we have to watch fail before Hollywood realizes that video games should never be adapted into motion pictures? Wow.
Wait, wow.
I know
This
these are
guy just
strong
went
words.
in.
Tell us how you really
What?
feel,
Okay, wait.
Dustin Chase of Texas Art and Film.
I think the last line there is just unbelievable. How are you going to, wow, just dismiss the entire art form of video games? Wow.
I
Wow.
know, right?
This guy.
I
Okay.
mean,
Incredible. I was gonna say like none of these reviews make me want to watch this film at all.
mhm.
But then now this one
Oh,
is like to spite him, maybe I will go watch Uncharted.
wow. Did you hear that, Dustin Chase of Texas Art and Film? You are on notice.
Wow.
You have screwed up, and now one person is going to go see a movie because of your actions.
Yeah, I think like all gamers, like if they read this, they're like, I'm disrespected now. I have to go watch this film. Well, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it does raise a question, right? Of like, and actually, the segues really nicely into the Bioshock movie discussion, which,
Mhm.
right now it's just an announced movie that Netflix is working on. We don't really know much about what it's going to be like. But I think that what that person is saying is kind of like, even though it's a very unilateral declaration that obviously like we should take with a grain of salt, there is the question of like, how much does the simple addition of interactivity completely shift the value proposition of a video game? And like when you remove interactivity from something like Uncharted, I think it does flounder because like the Uncharted games, they do have narratives, and I think those narratives have gotten better over time in terms of building out character relationships and kind of like giving them actual, at least a degree of substance. But I mean, Uncharted is even more so than like an Indiana Jones or whatever, a bunch of set pieces strung together.
Mhm.
And when you remove interactivity from that, I think you get something fairly hollow, no matter how good the actors that you've attached to it are. And then you take something like Bioshock, and even more so than I think something like Uncharted, the thing that made Bioshock have this major imprint on the collective consciousness of video game players was the moment in which you realize that while you are in control, you're not in control, right? Like, did you play Bioshock back in the day?
No.
You want me to spoil it?
No, it's okay. Well, I mean, I think at this point I probably know what it is, so you can go ahead and say.
Yeah. Okay, because like there's a moment in the game where basically you are told that you have been brainwashed, that you are mind controlled,
Hmm.
and you approach the character that you are trying to that a character that you are trying to kill, and he actually like he makes you kill him, but he does it by revealing that every single time he disguised as somebody else, basically, and talking to you over radio, used the phrase "Would you kindly?" that you were just compelled to do it by brainwashing. And so you, the player, were doing that because you felt the need to advance through the game. But your character apparently was doing those things because he did not have a choice. And so like that moment has no impact if you're not if you're not playing that character. Like how do you replicate that in a movie if there is no agency on the part of the audience?
Hmm.
And so like it's so interesting to see this particular game get optioned for a film. I guess, not just option, but probably like I'm assuming like it's in pre-production or something at this point.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no writer from like never mind, it's not. It is, and the partnership has been in the works for almost. Okay, so yeah, it's still very early. This could also be a thing where the movie never actually comes to fruition. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I would disagree that like I think that you have a point there where like Uncharted is like I mean like, a bunch of games at of this era like that era of like trying to copy Hollywood and like make
Mhm,
something like full of action and maybe like low on plot and high on like action, and then copying that over back over to Hollywood would just like kind of like take away from the quality of writing that was I mean first of all like maybe the some games don't have the best writing, and then you like go back and put that into a Hollywood movie, then it's
mhm,
like we were saying, like very dull and um, probably just like something that you're not gonna watch with like your full attention span.
mhm,
But like Bioshock, I think just has a lot of like story to it. It's got like a rich like background, and I think that could be worth exploring in
mhm,
Netflix. And I think because it's not gonna be in theaters and people don't have to pay extra just like by that virtue, like they might, watch a Netflix show. I
mhm.
watch like the Dota TV show when I don't play Dota at all. So like there's like something interesting about like entering a video game space of like a lot of lore and you don't have the energy to actually play the game itself, but
Mhm.
you want to know what that world is. And so I think like the BioShock film, I would put that in a different category than like the Uncharted film,
Yeah.
just having not watched either or played either game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, as Jonathan in chat says, the thing to me is you don't need to watch the movie. The Uncharted games are practically movies, right? Whereas, like, I mean, I think Bioshock offers something slightly different, though it's still like a fairly cinematic experience. It's just a first person one as opposed to a third person one.
Mhm.
But I do think your point makes a lot of sense, Shannon. And that also, like, I think that maybe another thing that a company like Netflix would be looking for in something like Bioshock is a like unique setting, a place that is immediately eye catching and that, in a trailer would kind of grab people well and make them be like, huh, I wonder what this is about. I'll check it out. So yeah, there are a lot of appeals. There are a lot of different ways they could approach this. But I mean, like if we're talking about the specific moment that put Bioshock on the map, I think that is going to be very hard, if not impossible to replicate in a movie in a way that would like grab people in the same way.
Yeah,
So
they would have to find something else to hook people and not like replicate the same thing.
mhm,
Like I just played through Detention, and then I watched one movie on Netflix that adapted Detention, the Taiwanese horror game, and
mhm,
then also there's another TV show that adapted the same game over as a TV show. I haven't watched the TV show, but like just even like the order of events and what is revealed to the audience is changes significantly. So like the twist of the game comes as like the first few minutes
mhm,
of the film, just because that way people are not completely confused, and so there's no like great like reveal in
mhm,
that film, and it's more of like okay, now I have the context, I have all the information. I'm gonna live in this world for an hour and a half.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no. Speaking of big reveals, I think it's time to jump into our next one, which is still related to all of this. Speaking of the Hollywoodification of video games, yeah. So in addition to the next Sonic movies, there's also going to be a Knuckles series on
Mm.
Paramount Plus with Knuckles still voiced by Idris Elba.
That's great.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that's one of the ones that I will definitely watch that. Um, somebody else on Twitter, I think, also pointed out that technically in making this announcement, because they also announced a third Sonic movie, they announced Sonic 3 and Knuckles,
Mhm.
which is extremely funny because Sonic 3 originally like came out on the Sega Genesis, and there was a pack you could add to it that would add Knuckles. And then that has become a meme unto itself now, many, many years later, where people have pinned and Knuckles onto like every title you could think of. So they made a nod to a meme with
Uh,
a massive budget movie announcement.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
which is very impressive.
yeah. Well, I think they probably heard their fans, right? But also the fact that, I mean, this entire announcement, what stands out to me is Paramount Plus, one of the streaming services I've managed to avoid getting,
Yeah, me too.
is starting to, I guess, also like buy content, and maybe by next year I will not be able to avoid this platform. Um,
A real shame because I do want to avoid as many streaming services as I possibly can, because I don't know if you've heard or if Chad has heard, but those things cost money.
um, I don't. I unfortunately I actually don't know what you're talking about. I
Also, wow, sudden
get all of
viewer
mine for
boost.
free.
Welcome everybody who just joined. I don't know where you came from, but I hope you stay. Um, let's see. So yeah, moving on from film and stuff
Oh,
like that. Oh,
actually, can I
what's up?
can I
What's up?
send in a link request? Last minute link
I think you
request.
can. I think you can.
Okay, okay. So
What do we
if
got?
how do I send this to you? I could just tell you to go on the Verge website and click on the first article on the top.
Wow, the first article. All right.
Yeah, I just because
The
my internet went
Verge.
down, it like opened this article up, and I was like, wait, this is actually quite. I've been
Um,
waiting for this announcement.
Now wait, is it
This
the
one,
Peloton
that
video
one.
game?
Yes,
All right. So let's see. We got Peloton's Lane Break video game is finally here.
yes.
What is this?
So it's just a game you can play inside your treadmill. Sorry, not your treadmill, inside your bike and your Bike Plus. So I
Mhm.
can't play it unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, it looks a little bit like Beat Saber aesthetically, but
Oh yeah.
you just kind of ride your bike. And I know about
Do you
this
like
because
dodge stuff or like how does it what is the gameplay?
I guess you just speed down the lane. But here, let's see.
Oh,
I
here we go.
honestly just saw it.
Let's see. Essentially, you can switch between 6 virtual lanes by turning the bike's resistance knob.
Oh,
The
okay.
further right you go, the higher resistance. There are also game mechanics, dubbed by Peloton as moments, that
Mm,
relate to your resistance and how fast you're pedaling. For instance, beats are blue bars that give you points for being in a certain lane. Breakers are orange sections where you're supposed to pedal faster, while streams are green sections where you stay within a specific cadence range.
okay. I mean, I feel like Peloton's already like gamified exercise quite a bit, and then this just kind of like fits in really well. And I knew that that they were making a video game. Like last year when I joined
Mhm.
Washington Post, I had just finished reviewing the Peloton treadmill, and Peloton was like, "Wait, stay in touch. We have gaming news coming." And then I heard nothing from them for a year,
And they
and now
almost went out
this
of
has come
business.
out. So I'm like excited to finally solve this mystery of like what were they doing? Yeah, this is honestly, coming at a time when the company stock price is dropped tremendously, it's like $30
Mhm.
now or something. They have released a bunch of treadmills that killed small kids and pets, and it's just like it's a very tragic future for this company, and maybe this
Mhm.
video game can save them, is what they're thinking.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, tragic future, maybe a more tragic past, given that the kids and animals you mentioned.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah.
Sad.
Well, speaking of bad things happening at companies, or at least maybe a good thing happening, but a bad thing, a company trying to do a bad thing to prevent it. Let's hit the story that you were talking about earlier that
Hmm.
you recently published.
Yeah. Well, my
Um,
internet's still here. Let's go.
yeah, let's do it. All right. So, Activision Blizzard employees and management clash over union process in Zoom hearing. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, so starting like yesterday and even now, like they're still talking right now. I just I can't tune in right now because I'm on the stream.
Mhm.
But basically, like today, yesterday, tomorrow, possibly tomorrow, Activision Blizzard employees, specifically Raven Software quality assurance testers, are testifying against Activision management. So just like the head of Raven and other Activision executives are also testifying. Both sides cannot agree on who can vote with for a union. Raven quality assurance testers wanted to go for like a so-called micro union and just unionize like about 30 people within their department, and that would have given them a super majority, and they could just like, if management voluntarily recognized their union, they could just have a union at this point. But management didn't recognize them and decided to fight them every step of the way, and that's the next step is this hearing. Raven Software is like, you need the entire studio to unionize, and they are asking this because the entire studio is about 300 employees, and not all of them are going to be in support of the union. They might not be able
Right.
to get a majority of votes that way. So that's the current conflict. And then every day in this hearing, you're just getting a lot of evidence presented on both sides. Uh,
Mhm.
Activision first called head of Raven Software, Brian Raffel, and then they called head of HR, and then also like a senior director, Bill Fine, and at this point a couple of other folks. And then after that, like Raven workers are scheduled to testify as well. And so they've just been discussing like things like what are the duties of the quality assurance testers. And one of the things that I reported on back in January was the idea that the company was going through reorganization, and they were going to move all these quality assurance testers across different departments at the company. And
Mhm.
that's when uh, you know labor lawyers are telling me, oh, that seems bad. That seems like it's going to go towards like management's argument there of like, if all the quality assurance testers were integrated with all the other departments, and there is no quality assurance department, then you can't unionize, and you have to unionize the entire studio. And then there's also this other. It's very complicated. I'm just go on, but there's also the piece of like, right now we're under the Biden administration,
Mm.
and previously, the Trump administration had overturned a Obama era precedent where, under the Obama administration, micro unions were so like more allowed because the burden of proof was like, so if there was like a hearing like this, the employer would have to prove that the excluded members of the so like if there was like a small union trying to be formed, the employer would have to say, outside of this like tiny group of people, these other folks they belong to the same union, and the other folks are doing different jobs, have different wages,
Mhm.
different duties. So that employer would have to convince the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, that all of those jobs are like similar enough that it should all be like one big union, and that could like dilute the union vote that way. So that was under Obama. It was like, oh, these micro unions could be formed more easily because the employer has to argue against them and has to provide evidence. And then under Trump, that precedent was overturned, and then it
Mhm.
became that the employees have to prove, or that like micro unions were not as easily formed. And under Biden, this is again possibly going back to the Obama precedent, and that was a very confusing explanation. But basically, under Biden, like the Communications Workers of America and Ravens workers are hoping that they can form a micro union more
Mhm.
easily. But
Right.
it's still not like completely solidified yet. I think at this point, the NLRB is like taking amicus briefs and like thinking about this, and hasn't like necessarily made up its mind.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, yeah, and so then this is all interesting, right? Because it seems like Activision's approach right now is to try to dilute the vote in different directions, right?
Mhm.
And so one of them is saying, okay, well, everybody at Raven should be part of the vote, not just the quality assurance department, which would obviously make a much smaller pool of voters, and I think, a pool of voters that are already pretty on board with the idea of a union. Um, and then the other one is that it seems like, in general, the company is doing some reorganizing. As it says here, the company reorganized its quality assurance department January 24th during an internal meeting, shortly after its workers announced their intentions to unionize. Um, yeah, the illustration was a source of laughter among employees who attended the hearing as they created and shared memes over what management said. Wow. Um,
Yeah, there's some good memes. I cannot divulge what they are specifically because it gives them away. But yeah, there was just like a lot of moments where I mean, one of the things was like Bill Fine, the director of production, kept saying that, and this is not in the article, but he
Mhm.
kept saying that quality assurance is part of production, and quality assurance testers were just constantly saying like that's incredible because we are not part of production at all. And so he's,
Right.
testifying something that's not even true.
Mhm.
But then again, like, you can get into like technical definitions and like management can push back on them. So,
Mm.
but yeah, just the one thing that I was trying to explain, but like got mired in the explanation of like politics. But basically, the company reorganized the quality assurance testers and like moved them across departments on January 24th, which was
Mhm.
like 3 days after Raven workers had asked to unionize and asked to
Yeah.
have that union approved.
Mhm.
So the labor lawyers I've spoken to beforehand have said that Raven workers can use that as an argument, or like the CWA can use that as an argument to say that management was like um, embedded those testers to undermine unionization. And that's also something that, another worker said anonymously further down the
Mhm.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Here we go. First few days, we're supposed to start the embedded testing model. No one, not even management, knew who we would be directly reporting to. Several weeks into being an embedded tester, it is still not clear to me exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it
It,
seems like a pretty spur of the moment decision that was reactive rather than like truly planned out.
yeah. So, even during the course of the hearing, the way that they're describing quality assurance testers' jobs, like workers have told me, like the way that Activision management is describing their jobs
Mhm.
in the hearing itself is more helpful than what they've been told as they're working every day. So,
That's wild. Um, and then yeah, while I cannot necessarily, I can't give like too much information on this. I know that they've recently done a reorg with another studio as well. That kind of stands to like disperse people a little bit more, so that they're not quite as able to organize. So I mean, it seems like this is Activision's broader tactic, and also my cat just hopped up on my bed, so you may see her in a moment. Oh yeah, by the way, when I was moving around earlier, I was definitely freeing her because she managed to get trapped under my bed. And so I had to, while still staring into the camera, maneuver a bunch of things beneath my setup so that she would stop scratching at the bed and maybe panicking that she was trapped.
got it.
So, an exciting day today for both Activision workers and myself.
Hmm.
Equally exciting, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, well, I mean, debatable, but yeah. The other thing to note for this story is just like the last note at the end of the article,
Mhm.
which is that Activision Blizzard workers are still trying to unionize across the company. Um, and yeah, that's public information
Mhm.
at this point, which is just like yeah, every part of the company is trying.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like Activision Blizzard is feeling the heat. Yeah, speaking of revelations surrounding them, uh,
Oh yeah, those.
Activision CEO Bobby Kotick has a second secret company that spends big money to back Republican campaigns.
First of all, I want to say it's such a cable network thing to put big money in the headline
Mhm.
because I working at CNN, we often did that too. Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. The company Norgate LLC contributed $500,000 through two separate checks to the Senate Leadership Fund during the 2020 election cycle, according to federal filings reviewed by CNBC, which is, yeah, quite a bit of money.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, just it's in line with kind of Bobby Kotick's previous actions. I mean, as we've talked about on the stream previously, Activision Blizzard currently employs three different former Republican uh, executive branch members or like cabinet members, whatever you want to call them. Um, and then like just in general, I think Bobby Kotick also himself just donates a lot to the Republican Party under his own name. I believe
Yeah.
if you search him on Open Secrets, you will find that he has contributed hundreds of thousands also of his own money in addition to this second company he's made.
Hmm.
In fact, let's go look at that really fast. Open Secrets. Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah,
Ba, ba,
I
ba,
think you can
ba,
look this
ba.
up about like any CEO, and yeah, it's a bold headline, but I think a lot of CEOs donate to different campaigns, so
Oh, yeah, let's
not
see.
very
I think
surprising.
he's under Robert Kotick, actually.
Oh yeah.
Um, Where is he? Site search. They
Donor.
changed the way their site
If you
works.
filter by donors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. Money to candidates. Yeah. So we have a bunch of donations in 2020, 2019 for 1,000 and 10,000, 6,800, 1,000,
It would be notable if he stopped after.
50,000.
It would be notable if he stopped after Biden was elected. It'd be kind of notable.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it would, wouldn't it? Well, let's look at these dates.
Although I don't know
20,
how like
2020, 2020,
recent
2018, 2017.
I don't know
Yeah,
how
recent
recent
their data is.
yeah, so that doesn't really say much.
Right,
Although
exactly.
if he like also donated during the Obama administration, that'd be also notable. But
Yeah, I mean, he did. He, if you go down here far enough, you get into Obama years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably like his own personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah. In any case, it's what he does. Let's see. Did they at least use the picture of him with the devil horns in the article? No, they unfortunately did not. That would be very funny if CNBC did that. But I'm not sure if that's their exact vibe, unfortunately. Alas. Oh no. Shannon, have you? Oh, never mind. Okay. For a moment, I thought you'd paused again.
Oh, I didn't move. I'm just
Okay.
waiting.
Yeah, you were just in a perfect meditative state.
Yeah, I like to do that a lot to my friends to trick them.
Okay, well, it worked. I'm impressed. I could not do that right now because Biscuit is behind me. She's visible. Everyone in chat say hi to
And
Biscuit.
your light, your light is a giveaway.
Oh, I guess that's true. But yeah, can we get some greetings to, or some hello biscuits in chat? Something like that. I don't know. Say whatever you want to say to her. She'll appreciate it in that way only a cat can, which is to say she won't at all and she'll never know. Let's see. In the meantime, so the next story is to me a pretty depressing one. Not more depressing than, Activision Blizzard Bobby Kotick, but depressing in its own way. Because this week Nintendo surprise announced that they are shutting down the 3DS and Wii U eShops, which is terrible, right? Because these are the only places that you can obtain a whole bunch of different games. And then suddenly, or at least legally obtain them, I should say. And as of March 2023, they're just gone. And maybe some of them will re-release on like the Switch or what have you in some capacity in the future. But also some of these games are smaller, and others are probably tied up in licensing agreements that wouldn't really necessarily span over to the Switch, and all of these other issues. And so what you get out of that is just a lot of games kind of getting flushed down the toilet. Thank you everyone who said hi to Biscuit. We made sure to reframe the shot to highlight Biscuit. Oh yes, your heroes. But anyway, yeah, so like you have all these games that are just kind of going like their existence is now in question.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. So in an FAQ, Nintendo said that some legacy games are available via the Nintendo Switch Online libraries. The more will be added, but stated that we currently have no plans to offer classic content in other ways. So that is a huge bummer, especially because some of the games that we stand to lose are really good, including, hey, look, Phoenix Wright game.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, so this is kind of interesting to me because I don't understand from a business perspective why would they do this? Is it like a server issue, or I mean that just makes me like really curious, and I don't have like the answers to these questions. So that's why I'm like just sitting here and thought of like I don't know, like why would you? I guess like to push people to the newer console and like the new games. Like okay, we've like remade all of these on the Switch, just play them, or like we
Yeah.
haven't, but you know what, that wasn't a popular franchise, so just move on. So maybe that's like the reason behind it. But yeah, I mean like Xbox and PlayStation do this as well, and it's always like struck me as interesting and weird.
I mean, you know, I think that an interesting question is always the genesis of good reporting. So if this is a thing that you have a question about, perhaps it could be a future story on
I
the WashingtonPost.geocities.weblog.com.
I would, but you know what? There's a lot coming up the pike. There's so much, so probably not
Mm.
this one. But
Wow.
somebody else can definitely look. Somebody else can look into this.
Well,
Maybe you,
unfortunately, I
and
don't
just
I don't
let
know
me
anybody
know.
else. I don't actually know any people. I just know that cat right behind me. She's
Okay,
my
yeah,
best
maybe
friend.
Maybe your cat can look into
Oh,
this
I can
for
assign it
us.
to her. Biscuit, you've
Yes.
got an assignment. I know that you were investigating some other stories, but those need to be on hold. You really need to look into why these video game makers remove older games. Um, yeah, no, I mean, speculation says server stuff, obviously, like you were saying. And then, yeah, I think also probably to kind of encourage people to use newer products. That said, in this case, that doesn't really hold water because the 3DS and the Wii U sold nothing compared to the Switch. And I think that, pretty much everybody who had those platforms and then some have migrated to the Switch. Um, I mean, I think that probably explains it, though, is that those consoles are being used. The shops for those consoles are probably being used so little, relatively speaking, that Nintendo's just like, all right, time to pack up and move on.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, yeah, it's a huge bummer. And it's one of those things where, I think that copyright law being what it is and the sort of like lack of open source releases being what they are, like just make for this terrible ecosystem in which
Yeah.
games eventually just disappear forever.
I don't know that the number of sales of Wii U necessarily like means that this is the reason why they're shutting down. I think it's more like software sales for the Switch are up, and
Mm,
if you can have like Ace Attorney came out on the Switch, right? Like that, and then people would buy that more. So like I
mm.
miss that, and I don't have. But honestly, like people probably have owned these in the past already, if they wanted it. And then I just want to say that the chat is really nice. Thanks, James Jackson. You're right. Whenever I reach Nintendo for comment, I mean, on stories like this, I don't think they would talk to me.
This kid is now the lead correspondent for this show. uh, But yeah, no, Nintendo wouldn't talk about this. I think it would definitely have to be one of those pieces. Not to get too inside baseball here, but it'd have to be one of those pieces where like you talk to a bunch of analysts and stuff, and they tell you like, well, here's like the underpinning business reasons that a company would do this, because companies are not necessarily going to talk about it at length.
Yeah, yeah, again, too many things to do. That's someone else can, and someone else being Biscuit. So
Also, good point. The 3DS did sell pretty well, 75 million. Wow, that is more than I thought. The Wii U did pretty dismally though, right? It was like
yeah,
13 million or
well,
something.
the best thing about Nintendo for a story like this is that they
Mhm.
just publicize all of their sales by
Right, of course.
units, which like other companies don't, and you can just
Mhm.
go like Nintendo video game units sold, investor relations. You can read everything.
Yeah. And then yeah, let's see. For the people who do video game preservation, they have a year to archive the entire eShop. Yeah, they do. And that part is good. And of course, like the process of archiving. But I mean, Nintendo makes these things difficult, right? Because Nintendo's very litigation happy. Um, when they're fan projects or when they're projects they don't like that verge on piracy, and Nintendo will be one of the first to cease and desist people or threaten to sue them. Which is unfortunate because when a company like Nintendo does this, one of the only ways to really circumvent it and ensure that these games definitely are able to like be played in the future reliably is piracy. Um, and then Nintendo is also a company that is very litigation happy in this regard. So it again, it's an unfortunate state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like video game museums and
Mhm.
historians and archivists, so I wonder if like this is an area they could help out with too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They can definitely help out by like preserving those games in some capacity, but it still doesn't make those games easily obtainable, and that's kind
Mhm.
of the difference, right? Like, I mean, preservation in that sense is good, and definitely helpful. But if somebody was like, "Man, that game sounds really cool, and I want to play it right now," their options would be supremely limited.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, in other Nintendo news that I found very interesting and also telling, Ars Technica did this story on somebody who, it'll load in a second, who faked being a Nintendo insider with the most recent direct. And the way that they did it is so simple, um, and like kind of points to
Are you
sort
also
of,
having internet problems?
no, I'm just having problems with this very specific thing because my browser is stupid. There we go. I fixed it. Anyway, yeah. So this Nintendo insider fooled thousands of followers of fake predictions. And so basically
Wait,
what they
which one is
did,
it? Which one is Oh, I don't know
um,
this one. Okay. All right.
yeah, yeah. So basically what they did is they did a ton of tweets before the direct where they just like outlined everything they thought might have been possible. And then after the direct happened, they deleted every tweet that was
Oh,
inaccurate, aside from a few.
very clever.
And so then they were able to make the argument, look at me, I was so accurate. I must have inside sources. I must be like somebody that you can trust and follow.
Hmm.
Because like this is the way that all of these Twitter quote unquote insiders get credibility is they say, look at my track record. And same with like all these inside or quote unquote insiders that pop up on like 4chan and places like
Right,
that.
of course,
When in
yeah.
reality, like most people who go around calling themselves insiders, like on either like Twitter or 4chan or YouTube, who are not just like straight up journalists who you can rely on for actual good reporting,
Mhm.
are almost certainly lying to you. They
Hmm.
are just making stuff up. Like I cannot overemphasize this. This is all like there's an entire ecosystem of quote unquote insiders around like Grand Theft Auto, for example, specifically like Grand Theft Auto 6, which is in development, but which like nobody really knows anything about in like any sort of substantial way. But there are all these like fake insiders who just say like it's going to be this, it's going to be that. My uncle who works at Nintendo, who works at Rockstar, told me all of this stuff.
I
And it's
mean,
just like no, it's nonsense. It's
the same thing
clickbait.
happens
Ignore
with
it.
like tech leaks as well. Like I think people just predict like the next phone will have 6 cameras,
Mhm,
and like here's a photo, and like some of these photos are like very sketchy. I've like spent a lot of time like having to look through like leaks on
mhm,
like different accounts, like try to prove it out, like which one is real, which one's like Photoshop, which one's like
mhm,
a illegitimate account. And yeah, you just like a lot of people just like cite each other, and to a point where like you find the original source is like, okay,
mhm,
this is not credible at all. But yeah, I just like within like as you're talking, like it reminds me of within like tech Twitter, there's a lot of these kinds of folks as well.
mhm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like it is again one of the things that like the internet in its current state incentivizes. It's easy clout, right? Easy way to get followers, easy way to become like a figurehead in a community, like
Mhm.
all of these things. But yeah, in this case, this person was actually doing it entirely to like prove a point about it,
Oh, it's a social
unprompted.
experiment.
Yeah,
In the end,
yeah,
tricking people is
unprompt.
fine. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, of course it's not. But yeah, they did this unprompted, I think. They just, tweet revealed they're like this account was an experiment to see how easy it is to fake it and make it.
Mhm.
I wanted to see how easy this was, and unfortunately, it's very easy. Um, so yeah, cautionary tale. If you have a favorite quote unquote online insider who's not Washington Post .blogspot.wordpress geocitiesagain.com, then maybe take what they say with a grain of salt.
Hmm.
um, let's see. Oh, also going back to the previous topic for a second, yeah, Ham Solo makes a good point, which is that it turns people into pirates to not be able to get something easily. These games are getting extremely valuable, and it may be their plan to keep those valuable, uh, to keep old IP hard to find equals legendary items now. Yeah, sort of. I mean, I think they also just like don't care very much about smaller games that didn't make them a ton of money.
Yeah, that is a good point though. There are some like auctions for like old video games that are
Oh
worth so
yeah,
much money now at this point. So that does make them into legendary
yeah.
items.
Though even that is kind of like that has been overstated, I think, to an extent. Like there were copies of like Super Mario 64 that sold for absurd amounts of money, I think, last year. And like talking to people who are in the know about that, they were like, yeah, there's no reason these copies went for this much money, except for that like it's just a new form of like speculative investing. It's like
Hmm.
people buying art for lots of money and
So
like
it's like
artificially driving up
NFTs.
the price. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very it's like NFTs, it's like Pokemon cards, like it's all different
Beanie
flavors of the same
Babies.
trend. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in any case, let's see. As it is already 5:30, I'm going to skip probably a couple things. No, well, actually, I think we can get through these in pretty short order. Um, let's see. So, EA internally has acknowledged Battlefield 2024 as quote unquote a miss, or at least the
Hmm.
launch of it as a miss.
Mhm.
Yeah, they said in an internal discussion, it's really important to acknowledge when we have misses. This is certainly the case of Battlefield's launch, which failed to meet the expectations of our players and also clearly missed our own expectations. Um, and that's interesting, just because like a lot of companies, don't really talk this way when things go wrong. They're like, well, actually, it was a stunning success and it defied all previous records and everything's going great for us. No,
Right.
no further questions, please.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Like the way that Activision Blizzard talks about Overwatch League. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, numbers have never been better. If you like totally change all the goalposts constantly.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Oh yeah, for leaks and shenanigans. Yeah, there are a couple journalists that are good for it. Though I would argue that Jason Schreier is doing very different work than Jeff Grubb. I think Jason kind of does it in service of broader stories about the games industry, and then Grubb kind of just like does rumors, which don't really serve anything other than to help the hype cycle and marketing cycle for various games. But whatever, this is my opinion. Um, let's see. So other EA news that's worth kind of touching on is that and we talked about this last week. So last week we discussed the way that a Sims expansion pack that contains LGBT content was not going to be released in Russia, because EA was basically like, yeah, Russian laws are very strict. We'd have to remove things. And then, we don't want to do that. We don't want to compromise this part of the game. So we're just not going to release it there. Since then, EA has done an about face. They have said that My Wedding Stories is coming to Russia, and
Hmm.
they've done that in part like because I guess they just like had a change of heart, but also because there's a big fan movement against their decision that happened over the
Right.
weekend.
Right.
This fan movement was called, what was it? Yeah, hashtag Weddings for Russia. And it was like a huge thing in the community, interestingly, for multiple reasons. So yeah, it was like why the community rallied around protesting this decision is a bit confusing. Some have said that not releasing the pack in Russia is discriminatory towards LGBT people in Russia who need representation. Others, however, have said that the Russian law regarding gay propaganda is not as severe as EA has stated, and that not releasing the pack was evidence of anti-Russian bias.
Oh, yeah, nationalism. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you get the nationalists and the LGBTQ protesters like aligned, I mean, at that point, you have to listen to them. Like, you're basically doomed otherwise.
Yeah, right. You have both sides of the spectrum, basically.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so EA in reaction to all of this said, we believed that our team could not freely share the storytelling of same-sex couple Cam and Dom in Russia and decided the best way to uphold our commitment to sharing their story was to not release this pack there.
Hmm.
We've reassessed our options and realized we can do more than we initially believed, and we will now release The Sims 4 My Wedding Stories game pack to our community in Russia, unaltered and unchanged, featuring Dom and Cam.
Mm.
And that unto itself kind of speaks to, at the very least, like there being some veracity to the idea that the laws are maybe not as severe as EA thought. Because I mean, how else would they do this if the laws were still as severe as they figured?
Yeah, that is like the bigger question is like, wait, you were not able to do it, but now you can. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, legally how? Um, yeah, that would be really interesting to like go and like play that version of the game and just like check to see if anything has changed.
Hmm.
But also like if is this pack launching in like other regions in the world? Like this just also like begs other questions of like other countries. Yeah, so it's I mean, this reminds me of I just got like an email a couple days ago, like
Hmm.
Garena Free Fire. Garena
Oh
Free
yeah,
Fire
yeah.
is also like banned in India now, and which also like India had banned PUBG.
Hmm.
And Garena is like similar genre. And yeah, just like would that game ever be allowed again? Or and that's a different thing. That's not like anti-gay propaganda or like or anti like it's not like homophobia in that case. It's more like, oh, these like youths are losing their minds over this game, and we have to stop them. Um, but yeah, just like the idea of like other countries and governments like and how do they deal with video games is like always been like super interesting, and there's
Hmm.
not enough like coverage of that.
Yeah. I mean, the youths are always just losing their minds. It's constantly happening. We could
Yeah,
just make them stop losing their minds, then we wouldn't need to have, authoritarian laws about it. It's the youth's fault.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's
They just
that's
need
my
to
takeaway.
study harder. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. They need to spend like between 12 and 14 hours per day studying, and then they need to like, I
Go to
guess,
sleep
yeah,
immediately.
exactly. And then wake up and study more. Yeah,
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing easier than sleeping, so why aren't they doing more of it?
yeah. I
Again, we just solved all the world's problems.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. In other news pertaining to the world in video games, this is a very clunky transition, but I think it works for my purposes. Um, Sony is doing this weird Horizon Forbidden West promotional thing where the idea is like if you in the game unlock a certain achievement, then they will like plant a tree.
Mhm. Hmm.
And yeah, it feels real weird in light of it's garnered criticism because people are like, okay, anything like this, you could also just be an environmentally conscious company. And instead of like hanging the idea of planting trees on some sort of like in-game gimmick where the ultimate number of trees that will be planted won't even really do much, you could
Hmm.
just plant a lot of trees. You just be like, look at us. We are a good company doing good for the world. And like still get positive PR. You just don't have to do all this nonsense.
That's true. I think they're trying to make it interactive with the player, though. I mean, I've
Mm,
seen a lot of marketing like this when I covered CES 2021. There was like, oh, here's some like I was trying to do an article about like green uh tech and like clean energy and like companies trying to do that. And there was like one that was like, oh, I'll help you like conserve water in another country if you just like come look at my display at CES. And
mm.
it's like sure. I don't know. It just seems like pure marketing to me.
Right, right. Yeah, no, and the CNET article kind of gets into this. Let's see. A brief glance beyond the headlines reveals this is video games greenwashing at its worst. Reforestation is an admirable goal, and the Arbor Day Foundation, which claims to have planted 500 million trees in its 50-year history, is no slouch when it comes to getting seedlings in the ground. But Sony's program gives the false impression that buying a full-price AAA video game is the way to fix the planet and helps cast the company's environmental actions in a positive light. It equates purchasing Horizon with doing good for the planet. But such a simplification is grating. And when you weigh this against Sony's corporate environmental impact, the trophy for trees idea seems almost ludicrous.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, this is kind of a thing, right? Is that the between the creation of video game consoles, which requires factories, which have like pretty tremendous impacts on the environment, and then also consoles themselves, which draw a ton of power and have a big environmental footprint as well. Like planting some trees, it's not really going to do very much. Like it's basically saying like it's a classic kind of reframing of the problem from companies, the actual like major sort of environmental devastator, onto people and saying also if you buy our product you're helping undo the damage. It's like no, you're not even really a little bit. um
This kind of reminds me of like when Apple was like, "Oh, I will, take off the adapters on, chargers. I won't include the adapter so I can save the environment that way. But you still need the adapter to charge your phone, so you have to go out and buy that." And also the
mm,
same thing with like Sony was like, "I'm gonna have the digital edition of a PlayStation 5 now," and then you don't even like I'm gonna save and like slim it down. Um, yeah, I mean, it keeps happening. At this point, and I think the headline for this article, or at least the slug for the article, like Sony Horizon
mm,
Forbidden West feels like a publicity stunt. I think you could just
yeah.
say that it is a publicity
Oh
stunt.
yeah, it
Pretty
absolutely
obvious.
is.
But sometimes when marketers do these kinds of things, it works out. Like nobody criticizes it. It kind of escapes
Mm,
notice.
yeah.
But in this case, people can call it out.
Yeah. I think additionally it did escape notice. I think that was kind of the problem here. Is a lot of like a lot of sites reported it pretty uncritically,
Hmm.
and there's a blowback to that on Twitter, and then some good reporting here from CNET. Because yeah, they also go into the numbers, which I think are very telling. Sony's committed to a zero environmental footprint goal by 2050, but is still emitting almost 1.4 million tons of carbon dioxide from fossil fuel power alone, according to its 2021 sustainability report. The vast majority of this is coming from energy used at Sony sites across the world. The report also details how much carbon dioxide is emitted as a result of consumers using Sony products like TVs and game consoles. In 2020, these emissions were 19% higher than the year prior, and the highest they've been since 2016. This was, as the company notes, due to an increase in average TV screen size and strong sales of the PlayStation 5. PS5 is one of the most energy intensive consoles ever built, which means simply playing Horizon Forbidden West long enough to get the necessary trophy is actually generating carbon dioxide in the short term. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I put a thermometer on top of the PS5, and I like measured the temperature, and then
mm,
that tweet that I wrote about that, all these like Xbox fans started to retweet me and saying like, yes, look at how like PS5 is so warm
mm,
and doing so poorly. But I'm like, the Xbox Series X, same boat. I just want
mm.
to call out that James Jackson said, each tree that you plant should come with its own NFT. I think.
You know.
Um,
And as he also said, they'll be planted by Mr. Beast. There you go. So, just the full like philanthropy grift all in one go.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, oh, Ham Solo says, yeah, it's the equivalent of putting on wet gloves in the rain. Yeah, it just like this doesn't really do anything for anyone, and it also is. I think, as CNET rightly says, it's greenwashing, which is to say, you take something that you take your own terrible environmental actions and make them look good, but in
Hmm.
reality, you're just covering it up. You're just washing over. Yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
not a huge fan of that term because I feel like you
really.
need to explain it to like finally fully understand what it is. But other than that, yeah, no, I think Sony is part of the companies who are at the United Nations to talk about like how to fight climate change, if
Hmm.
I remember correctly. But it seems like from their 2020 data, they haven't like improved enough. Yeah,
Oh
that
man,
is.
yeah, this is also a really good little stat here. Let's see. If Horizon uses the same amount of energy per hour that Spider-Man Miles Morales does, it's likely to use more considering it's a brand new game. You're looking at around 400 watts of power to unlock the trophy and plant one tree. This is about the same as charging your smartphone 35 times. Now scale that up to 288,000 players, and you've emitted around 90 tons of carbon dioxide to plant the trees.
Quick maths.
I know, quick maths, yes.
That's
But
what
yeah.
that's what the writer wrote. Like, let's do some quick math.
But yeah, so that's yeah, that's not a great approach that Sony is taking. Hopefully, they will actually do something to meaningfully decrease their emissions, but I wouldn't count on it because they're a giant company that has no financial incentive to do so. Anyway, in lighter news, that again, I think you'll have some input on. I'm curious about this as someone who still doesn't play Wordle. Sorry, everyone, I broke my promise to start playing it. Um,
You
what
had
is
a
going on with this kind of like idea of a divergence? So
okay.
here, this is going to take a second to load again.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
that's right.
my
We were
browser is
all saying you must
garbage.
play Wordle. What have you been
Yeah.
doing if instead of playing Wordle? Okay, well,
I have been playing God of War from 2018 for mysterious reasons that will come to light in the future.
mhm,
Um, but in the
interesting.
meantime,
Mhm.
yeah. So I guess earlier this week there was a divergence where people playing in different like places got different solutions.
Uh, okay. I actually like. I haven't been playing Wordle this week either. I've been
Oh
playing Lost Ark,
no.
so I don't. I haven't run into the same problem. Yeah, but like
Yeah.
back when I was playing it last week, every day it was the same solution for everyone.
Hmm.
Let's see here.
But
Well,
yeah.
the New
So
York
this week.
Times and the app, so like, this has been reported about for like days now that
Mhm.
the New York Times version of Wordle is like glitched or like it's not as smooth. And yeah, and the original one, yeah, I mean, this is like, let's see. There's an
Mhm.
explanation, right? Like why are they different?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, it seems like the New York Times like removed certain words or censored them. And
Oh.
so one of those words was like, yeah, so what's going on here? Well, while the New York Times might not have intended to change up the gameplay, it did begin banning a series of words from Wordle's database last week. These included racial and gendered slurs, but also other phrases like, can't say that one, um, pupil and agora. Agora, for those who aren't familiar, refers to the public square in ancient Greek
Yeah, why did
cities.
they interesting.
A very good question to which I don't have the answer.
Huh.
Um, let's see. Oh,
Maybe
in a separate email shared on Twitter, Cohen said some words were removed to keep the game more accessible.
oh,
So maybe,
it's too difficult of a word, and so is
yeah,
people, like, what even is that? Yeah, so
yeah,
alright, well, yeah, I was trying to
yeah.
think, is that, like, a secret insult I didn't know about?
I know, right? That was my first thought too.
Um, yeah, well, great. I mean, I have not played the New York Times version of Wordle because I
Mhm.
tried to find it in the New York Times app, and I couldn't even find it, and I just started playing the crossword instead.
Mm.
So and also, like, after people have been saying it's not a good experience, I'm just like, "I wanna wait till they patch this." Um,
Mm.
yeah, so but if you, like I mean, like, my friends have been, like, posting the solution to Wordle every day, so, like, there's still I can, like, kind of, like, go back and look, but at this point, I've just literally sank my entire life into Lost Ark.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I well then I guess we no longer have a Wordle correspondent. This is very sad.
Oh, we still have Biscuit, you can keep assigning
Oh
her.
yeah, Biscuit, you're on the Wordle beat now too. She is
That
fully
works.
unconscious right now, but I think she took that to heart. I think she's dreaming of Wordle right now to like really kind of come up with some outside the box story ideas.
What a hard worker.
Oh
We should
yeah,
all
no.
aspire to be that hardworking.
Hmm. Yeah, no, she's the best reporter I know, far and away.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. But yeah. So in other news surrounding non-traditional figures, I guess that works. I don't know. Anyway, the as of this week, the record for most subscribers on Twitch for a female streamer now goes to Iron Mouse, who happens to be a VTuber, aka
Oh,
like an anime character.
oh man.
So here was the moment.
Dude, you're literally the best female streamer.
Did that just happen?
Did that just happen?
Did
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this is now the most subscribed person, or for the moment, she has more subscribers than any other female streamer on Twitch.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's everybody
VTubers
cheering?
just keep going. I mean,
We're gonna get made in
that's
one of our
great.
games,
Yeah.
dude.
Well, yeah, this is interesting, right? Because I think this is a side of streaming that is seldom talked about despite the popularity of it. VTubers are huge.
Yeah, they are.
And for the uninitiated, VTubers are that's short for virtual tuber, which sounds like a digital potato. But what it means is people using like avatars instead of their actual selves as their on-screen representations during streams. They often, in fact, usually create characters around them. So I mean,
Yeah.
they're not like being their actual selves. They are instead being like kind of a fictional creation that they enact throughout their streams, which to me seems very difficult. Like already streaming is really hard, and then you have to keep up like a second identity too. Seems wild.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's really
okay.
funny because just today I was like on a call discussing like a panel that I'll be on in the future, and
Mhm.
one of the people we're considering to have on is a VTuber.
Nice.
Just to, as like a substitute if someone else can't make it. But
Yeah,
I
you
was
should
like,
get a
oh,
VTuber.
what
Wait,
would
which
that
one? Which
be?
one?
Oh no, like they're gonna create a VTuber for this
Oh,
panel specifically. So I was like,
what an
all
idea.
right. I was like, I don't know, like what would the vibe be if it's like 3 real people and then a VTuber, and then you're sort of like,
The
I want to ask serious questions, but I know you're not a real person.
the
So,
vibe would be amazing. I honestly like would love to do this show as like a VTuber. I would love to just like have a digital representation and just like
oh, well, we
yeah,
have
that would
some
rule.
designers. We can arrange that.
Oh my god, if we can get VTubers for this show, that would their VTube avatars, that would rule. That would rule.
I already have like commissioned somebody to draw me in an anime style for my Discord icon, so, and for my Twitch stream.
Yes.
So that's not too far away. You just have to find
And,
the
you know,
right
I could
person.
actually commission my friend who makes cursed VTubers to make me, I guess.
Oh, that's
Um,
right from last week.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he could just make a really cursed version of me, which will
Can't wait to
honestly be
see
more
that.
true to my brand. But
Oh.
anyway, so yeah, this is also interesting because like while this is the first time that a VTuber's ever made it to this point in terms of like subscriber numbers and also in terms of follower numbers. I think she was the first to hit 1 million as well.
Mhm.
She did it in a fairly now I think standardized for Twitch way, which is that she did a subathon. A subathon meaning
Right.
that basically someone says, "Okay, I'm going to stream nonstop, or I'm not going to stop my stream." And as long as people keep donating, as long as people keep subscribing to my channel, and like for each her current rule set or her rule set in this moment was 1 subscription, $5 or 500 bits, added 15 seconds to the clock. So as long as people kept doing that, she'd keep streaming. And like this is a very reliable way to boost your subscription numbers to the roof. This was most famously popularized. I mean, the subathons have existed for years, but they became trendy again last year when Ludwig did his month-long subathon and managed to break the all-time record on Twitch for most subscribers, which I believe was in the 200,000s, almost 300,000. Or sorry, yeah. And so she's imitating that model. And like, you know, it's clearly working for her, but it's interesting to watch that kind of unfold with this dichotomy of someone using a trendy method while also like kind of being a first in another kind of way. And so it's also interesting because subathons are kind of like this has put them in kind of like the Twitch discussion zone this week.
Mhm.
And so we also have Disguised Toast talking about his own like he's doing a viewer-thon right now, which is different than a subathon. It's his own thing, And so his idea here is that instead of asking people to subscribe to him because he's not comfortable taking more money, he's already rich,
right,
he's talked
that's
about it a million times.
right.
He's just saying that he needs to keep his viewership above a certain amount, which I believe is like 5,000 or
So it's
4,000.
still like a similar it's the same thing where
Yeah.
you're just like, please give me views.
Uh-huh.
Great.
Yeah. But he's
Great
not
man.
asking for money. He's just saying like, yeah, just like maintain a certain number of viewers. Is it in this news story or did they somehow leave it out? That'd be very akin to this stuff.
Wait, no, right there above the video. Referred to as a view-a-thon.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we can just like pop open this and then maximize
This is
it.
the live
Yeah, so
viewer count. Where is it? It's 10,800.
Will only end
If
when I
this
have less
number
than
is ever
60 viewers.
smaller than this number, I end the stream.
oh, okay.
All right, everyone get it?
Yeah.
So then it just goes
If
on
this
for a long
number
time.
is lower than this number.
Yeah, but this
I
number
end the stream.
changes.
Now,
I was
because we're
checking earlier
beginning,
today.
This number is significantly
okay.
higher
Here we go.
than this number. But after 5 days, this is going to be about 12,000, right?
Yeah, so I think that they're
Oh, okay, it's gonna keep
Which
going up.
technically we
Yeah.
would still probably
Okay, I got it.
But then it's
Got it.
day 6,
Mhm.
then it's day 7,
Typical
then it's day 8,
disguised toast.
and then it
I know, right?
right.
Yeah, I know.
So
He's
essentially this is going to be a minimum 72-hour stream.
yeah, he's such a troll, but he does come up with really fun ideas for things that I think a lot of people don't. So gotta
Great.
respect him on that level.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like just like watching his Among Us plays from a while back. I was like, wow, you're just really a big brain everything.
Uh-huh. Yep. That is him in a nutshell. I mean, I think that's why he still does it, right? He's like he just enjoys messing around. He
Mhm.
enjoys coming up with like weird solutions to problems that no one else thinks of.
Yeah.
But yeah. In other Twitch news of this week, this was just one that I don't think anybody really surfaced to any
Oh
wide
yeah,
degree that I
I
found.
did see this.
Yeah. You saw it because of me, probably, or maybe not. I don't know.
No, I saw this on my own.
Yeah. Wait, you what?
I saw this on my timeline.
Oh, okay, well, never mind. Then I'm not special. But I think this is interesting because it's an example of a few different systems failing. So basically, this person was trying to stream the game "Get in the Car, Loser" by Christine Love,
Right.
and then found that it's banned in Twitch stream titles because the word "loser" is banned.
Mhm.
And so then submitted a report about it to try to resolve that issue, and just the report immediately like it was
Yeah.
not received by a human, it was received by automation. So this
Can I
is
just can I
oh
just
yeah, go
also
ahead.
say, when you say the name of this game, you have to deliver it like, "Get in the car, loser," and then
Oh, sorry,
no,
yeah, you're
we
right.
gotta do that. But yeah, that is I saw this already, and it's very sad.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to stream this game maybe.
Uh-huh.
I've streamed this game to like a couple of friends, and they said it's turn-based, and I'm seeing the same thing over and over again. So actually, probably not the ideal game to be streaming. But
Mhm.
yeah, very sad that like it's not an option just from the name alone.
Right. Well, and it's the sort of thing where already like banning the word "loser" is kind of like I understand some of Twitch's decisions in terms of words to ban, but like, come on. I mean, for one, "loser" is like it doesn't even necessarily have to be derogatory. It could just be that you're
Mhm.
talking about how you lost in a game.
Right.
And then on top of so you have that already. You have moderation failing in this instance, and then you have automation failing. So when moderation and automation, systems that are widely employed by pretty much every social media platform under the sun, both fail, then you get an instance like this where like a moderation decision makes no sense and there's no recourse for it.
Mhm.
And so this is a relatively minor example of something that is I think can be a much bigger problem.
Oh yeah.
And then like in this case, right, who's impacted? As this person points out, I'm not surprised to see Twitch censoring a queer indie game.
Mhm.
What I am surprised to see is banning the name because it's not an appropriate word for second grade, right? But I mean, like, yeah,
For the second grade.
yeah, like who suffers here? Of course, it's going to be smaller, more marginalized creators who don't have a means of circumventing automated systems.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, tried replying to the email to explain my problem was not the category, it was the title, and the fact the word "loser" is banned by auto moderation program and stream titles. The reply I got showed even less evidence of human involvement than the one before. And then finally, I think that like basically because these tweets like got spread around,
Right.
and actually I have a theory about this, which is like what the basically this person tweeted out that things had been resolved like maybe 5 or 10 minutes after I tweeted about this, and I know that a ton of Twitch PR people follow me, like Twitch comms people, and so it wouldn't shock me if like they caught
Are
my tweet about it.
you taking credit for this
I'm
when
not necessarily.
wow.
I am simply saying that there is a possibility because, and this is actually evidence of another problem. This is not a good thing,
Mhm.
because companies like Twitch, because they're so automated in all of this, they rely on journalists to do a lot of their moderation work. Instead of being proactive about it, they rely on problems and issues that journalists surface, and then they go in and make changes. But what this
Yeah.
means is that in many cases, the damage is already done by the time Twitch acts, or by the time, like YouTube or Facebook or whatever act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just leave it to like moderators that are unpaid within their own
Mhm.
systems too. Yeah. Yeah, that's really sucks. And I think that's like across the board at other companies like Uber and Discord even that we're using that I've
Mhm.
like run into of like, you're asking for support but nobody is responding. And it's
Mhm.
automated and you get like maybe like $5 back for your troubles.
Right.
Um yeah.
Which
And
is
unless
also such an
you
interesting thing, right?
Mhm.
Like they rather than hiring more people, they would rather placate you with money. They would rather say like, actually, we're just going to like no questions asked, give you money to make you go away,
Oh, but
because
like
like
a
that's still
small
cheaper for us than actually hiring people.
right, but like a small sum. So if a
Right.
person was there, they might be like, you are actually entitled to $100.
Mm-hmm.
And that you would lose more money that way. Actually, you can just go to like the Better Business Bureau for a lot of these like online apps, and then you can just see like people with their 1-star rating, and they're like, "I'm very upset. My child has been bullied, and there's no recourse." Yeah, it's just a lot of this across the board with
Mm-hmm.
tech companies and gaming companies.
Yeah. These are the times we're living in, unfortunately. Let's see. We are coming up on the top of the hour, so it's probably about time
Hmm.
to close out. There were a few things I wanted to get to. I guess I'll just like quickly point to. I also published a story this week just about actually somebody. It's really funny. This was born of another stream we did, but basically we had a former UFC champion, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, on a little while back, and he talked about how he used to be very interested in becoming a full-time Twitch streamer after his MMA career wrapped up, but he's had a change of heart in recent years, basically because of all the precarity surrounding being a Twitch streamer in terms of just like the likelihood of subscribers just suddenly leaving, and then also the fact that he has a family. He doesn't have time to be doing this,
I love this
especially in a way that would,
inception.
huh?
By the way, I love this inception of the stream within the stream of
I
okay.
know, right? Yeah, look at that. Um, but yeah, I think it's just an interesting thing to point to, because there have been so many people over the years talking about how, like, again, live streaming content creation is this big new career field, the creator economy, so on and so forth. And I mean, again, this is more evidence of people who even you wouldn't necessarily expect to recognize the kind of precarity of it, coming around to the idea of like, oh, wait, this is not as big or as like full of opportunity as people think. And yeah, because like, as I said in the piece, like there's some hope for streamers who want to lead more balanced lives. Platforms like YouTube are offering contracts that demand fewer streaming hours than Twitch. Content creators can proliferate their greatest hits across multiple platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as Twitch, thus diversifying their income. But it's more apparent than ever that only an incredibly small percentage of creators at the top actually succeed, leaving the rest to toil ceaselessly in pursuit of an erratically moving target.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's this kind of it's this kind of like overlap of these moments right now of like content creation is as a career limited in terms of people's ability to actually succeed, and then also like platforms are adapting to that. Platforms and creators are adapting to that to some degree, but not so much that there's like a sea change happening.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have like all other options besides streaming endlessly every day for $3,000 a month, and if
Mhm.
you have a way to get a work-life balance, like it sounds like Johnson has these options,
Mhm.
you probably would, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things where, but it's interesting in unto itself, because a lot of like this person does, a lot of like even MMA fighters don't. MMA is a sport notorious for just like chewing people up and spitting them out. So basically, they fight for years. Their bodies are ruined and broken, and like during that time, they don't make enough money to like actually sustain themselves for the rest of their lives. They can maybe open a gym or something like that in the aftermath, but they also have like body damage, brain damage, all these problems.
So what's the alternative? Like streaming on Twitch to like I don't know, suck up the rest of their mental energy and strength.
I mean, like for an MMA fighter, the alternative doesn't exist. I'm just saying that like to me, Mighty Mouse is in a privileged position, relatively speaking, in that he has been a champion. He's made a lot of money. He's still making good money. He will have options after his career is over, but other people like him may not necessarily. Yeah. Just worth noting that he is not necessarily indicative of like fighters in general.
Got it.
Yeah. Let's see. So I think for final thing today, let's go back to, let's do like a little bit of a throwback to last week, kind of, resurrect some of last week's vibes. And
hi, Buckman. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. See you later, Buckman. We're about to piece that too. So good timing. So yeah, there wasn't a ton of like, there's an unfortunate dearth of really dumb stuff I can show you this week, and I'm really sad about that. But there is this throwback to last week, which is that we've gone in 1 week from the announcement of Carby to Carby already being modded into Mario Kart.
Oh, that's excellent.
I know, right? Carby
Actually,
is real.
Honestly, Kirby should just be modded into Lost Ark and every other game that I'm playing.
Yeah, just put Carby everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look at that. Like, great Carby
then we
modding.
solved the gender politics problem of Lost Ark. We just put Carby.
Oh yeah, we just replaced everyone with Carby.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, Kirby is like, yeah, Kirby transcends gender, I would say.
This also fixes Cyberpunk's issues.
Oh yeah, just replace everybody with Kirby. Okay. Oh my
we go.
god.
Did it.
We have solved it.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I didn't expect to kind of solve every problem in video games this week. But like, here we are, and I think that we should probably give ourselves a pat on the back for that, because nobody before us had done that.
Yeah. I mean, you heard it here first. Everyone else can just credit us with the idea.
Yeah, and now that we are this massively successful, I will say that if I'm not credited with this idea, I will sue immediately. Wow. I'm going to become incredibly litigious, and yeah, so that's just kind of my plan for my life going forward.
Rough, but cool.
But yeah, in any case, I think we are going to wrap up. To reiterate the thing that I say every week, we do this every week, Thursday, 4 p.m. ET. I think we're going to be doing it next week. We'll see. Basically, both Shannon and I are going to be in Las Vegas to cover DICE, which is a video game conference.
Hi. Come say hi in Vegas.
If you're also in Vegas, I guess come say hi. If you're not, please don't travel all the way to Vegas just to say hi to us. That would be ridiculous. And I would be really afraid of you. But so yeah, we may or may not stream next week. We'll see. We are doing our usual gameplay stream tomorrow. That's also at 4 p.m. ET. That's kind of our order of events that we do every week. In the meantime, thank you for stopping by. Thanks to everybody who stuck around. It has been a pleasure. I'm Nathan Grayson. And
I just can I just say
sorry.
So I'm Shannon, and sorry to interrupt you like 3 times today. I don't know, my internet finally held through. I'm like thankful my internet's here for me. I was always like, I'm kind of lagging, so I'll just speak up ahead of you, and then it just ended up being that I'm talking over you. But
no, it's okay. I was mad at you though.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. But I have a gimbal, so next week maybe can stream from Vegas. We'll see. But yeah, it's great to hang out and talk again. And thank you, our loyal fans.
Yep. Thank you to everybody who stopped by, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.